city. Okay, most projects, a new restaurant or something else, if you get those 17 people around the table, they've got some experience. And they'll tell you, this is going to be the tall pole. We're trying to open a restaurant on the second floor, so it's fire access. Or it's right up against another building, it's going to be the grease trap. Whatever it is, figure out up front what the challenge is going to be. Get people working on that. Have one person speaking for all the resources of government, and they got it done. They cut in half the time without having to go around that daisy chain all the time. Simple. Sounds simple here, but in government, that's not how people practice things. They'll reflexively go back to what they did yesterday because it feels right. Well, it's not getting the job done. I think if we put people in place who will lead, and most important, measure, hold accountable, and work toward a result, I think we can see a difference here.
Great. Thanks. Go ahead.
To that very point, one of the things that we deal with all the time is the time frame, particularly when we deal with businesses. I was just speaking with our economic development department head who's with me today, and we had a new company we were talking to and asking from the time they made a decision on the land purchase till the occupancy, she gave them a period of 12 to 14 months. And they kept emailing back, said apparently you have a error in your email. It's like 48 months. I said no, it's 12 to 14 months. One of the things that we do when we get a new prospect, we do assign, Austin, exactly what you said, one person that goes completely through that process with that company. That person is responsible and accountable for the success of that project. We are a zone city, so we do have to go through planning and zoning. We have to go through our economic development. We have to go through our inspection permits. We have to go through the fire department. But we have one point of contact we provide for that company or that person, and that has certainly probably accelerated that process by at least in half. So.
Great.
I can speak to one point. Please. Rem Eyewear had some experience with, I guess, the city bureaucracy. We partnered with a company in Colorado to build the first of its kind, very unusual solar array system at our facility in Sun Valley. It was a 9-month project. 7 months was the red tape, the permits, the inspectors. I can't tell you how many inspectors came out and walked our parking lot, looked at the ground, didn't ask a lot of questions, went back, looked at drawings. It took forever to have them actually move forward with the approval. It took 2 months to build it. They had to sink the columns 22 feet into the ground. It was very unusual, and we finally got it built. But for a long time there, we wondered whether or not we were going to pass each level of inspection because it was very iffy. Finally, we did. But that's an example of what we had to go through.
Thanks, Don. And from the Sacramento perspective, I think you need to change the structure of the way we do things in Sacramento. I really firmly believe when you talk about the full-time legislature that's going on right now, there's a lot of legislators that view their success based on how many new bills they pass. And what happens in Sacramento is we just got done with a legislative cycle where Governor Jerry Brown had to act on over 800 pieces of legislation. Do you really need 800 new regulations in California? And so I think when we talk about the structure in California, I think we need to have more oversight on the money we do spend. But again, we need to change that because now legislators view their success based on new bills. So I have this idea that I put forward that I'm actually very happy that former Speaker Bob Hertzberg in California Forward has run with. That you know, we're working together, that says now you have a 2-year budget cycle that says 1 year, or we have a 2-year legislative cycle. 1 year you just do nothing but the budget, and then next year you do legislation. What that does is cuts the new regulation, new legislation in half on the bills that are introduced. And now the practical matter is now legislators, in order to go back to their district, have to make the budget more efficient. Now they have to say, okay, this program was set up for X, Y, and Z. Is it doing X, Y, and Z? And I think what's missing right now in Sacramento is a lack of focus. Let me give you one quick example. When Controller John Chung came out about 1.5 years ago and said we're literally weeks away of running out of cash in the state of California, at that time, a colleague of mine, a legislator, came up to me and lobbied me on the bill, what their bill was, on what the official state rock of California was. Now, we're about to run out of cash, and they're spending energy on what the official state rock of California is. And that's a lack of focus. You know, what we need to do is zero in. If this happened in your business and you're about to run out of money, you would have the cots in the office, you'd be burning the midnight oil, and you'd be focused and zeroed in on the problem at hand. And I think the way our structure works in Sacramento is we need to change it. And I think we need to change that structure so it isn't the same old thing year in and year out, that we do something different. And I think we need more oversight in Sacramento and make sure that the money's going where it was intended to go, and we need less regulation. I think that reform right there will put a step in the right direction. More questions? Go ahead. Right. Great idea. No, absolutely. And again, I think some of that comes back to the oversight of what I mentioned in terms of the budget. A lot of times people pass legislation saying that that new regulation would succeed in accomplishing X, Y, and Z. But after it's passed, we never go back to it. We never oversee it. We don't have enough oversight on the things that actually do get done. And unlike your business where it's a zero-based budget, we in government, in government, what happens is last year's budget is the baseline for next year's budget. So we really never open up the entire checkbook of the state of California and open it up. And only in government can this happen where, in business, the difference, if you have a regulation and you're expecting a 10% COLA and you only increase spending 5%, they call that a 5% cut, even though you're increasing the spending. So, I believe in a zero-based budget and be able to have more oversight. And I think that's the key in terms of regulation is we don't have enough oversight. And quite frankly, the legislature has advocated their responsibility in many ways to send decisions to the Air Resources Board, the Coastal Commission, the water boards. I mean, we have advocated our responsibility. I firmly believe that we need to do that within the legislature, because if you don't like the job I'm doing, you have the ability to vote me out. And a lot of these boards and regulatory agencies don't have accountability. I've seen it happen time in and time out. But I don't want to dominate. Mayor? Go ahead.
Senator, comment on that is, and I don't want to hear advocating everything we do in Texas is right, but we only let our legislator meet once every 2 years.
Yeah. That's good.
We let them meet for 6 months. We have a beginning date and an ending date, and they have to get their business done, and they have a 2-year budget cycle. And that's all they're allowed to meet. Now, the governor can call them back into special session. But the other thing that we have, and I think one of the most effective things at a state level is done, is a Sunset Commission. And it's comprised of a committee of senators and legislatures, state reps, and they rotate their chairmanship every other session. And they go back and we sunset each committee, in each committee, and they go back and review those committees on a regular basis. And that is a complete audit from top to bottom, the effectiveness of regulations, what they do, and they go back. And actually, in the last Sunset Committee, they actually eliminated 2 major state committees, and if they have not been effective. So just something to consider. Thanks, Mayor.
More questions?
Well, I appreciate the comment. I have made a comment to some of my closest friends. I have probably reached the highest level of elected office without a background check, so I'm not running for anything beyond this point. So that's right. So that's right. So let's just leave it at that. So, at the bottom line, you get down to accountability, and that's a great question. I mean, look at the taxation issue. You really can boil it down to its simplest form as taxation regulation. And I think I've heard that. I was just looking at some of the notes here. You start looking at all the statistics, and let me give you an example. The workman's comp itself, state of Texas, 0.43 of payroll. California, 1.21. It's significant. It's significant, and you talk about taxation, but somebody's got to have the ability to address it. The other thing is that what we have also capped, and look, I just got off the board of a board of regents of a higher education university, state-supported. I was, as I mentioned, a Governor Perry appointee. We cap what our tax rate can be for education, not higher education, but for our K through 12. And what happens is these school districts, and you've seen the acceleration of growth in California, they go out, they sell bonds, they build facilities, and next thing you know, you're talking about these $2, $3 tax rates. And I heard comments today talking about high taxes. I'm not sure good or bad. I'm not sure I can agree with that. But at the end of the day, somebody has to generate that income. And that's the employee base and the consumer itself. So you asked the question, certainly I would focus on the tax rate. I would certainly, and the regulations, and it can be changed. It can be changed.
More questions? Well, go ahead. Oh, I thought okay. Well, I'll add a question. Mayor Thompson, you mentioned you have your assistant here with you from one of your economic development teams. What tools do you use to actually go out and get other businesses? What kind of tools do you use?
Okay, that's a great question. Let me say first is I have a small business. It's a sales-orientated business, and we've created a philosophy, number one, of retention. We have some great corporate communities, but I spend probably 2 days a week with our economic development director, and I go visit our businesses themselves because let me just give you a statistic. The city of Sugar Land assessed value is $9.5 billion. We have a 70-30 ratio. 70% of that value is residential, 30% is commercial. But the commercial contributes between 65 and 70% of our income. So I really feel like the corporate citizen is big for us. So I can't stress the fact retention is huge. I think it's a huge thing you got to work on. But we've got so many tools in the bag. First, we start at the local level. But the city itself, we've created what we call a 4A and a 4B corporation. 4A is they're 501c3s. They're approved by the state legislature that a municipality can create them. And we take a 1/4-cent sales tax, and we fund each one of those 2 development corporations. And each one of them generates in excess of $5 million a year. So I've got a bank account of $10 million that I can go out and incentivize businesses. We can do that with gap funding based on, for instance, we're talking to a major retailer today. And between the land cost and our construction requirements, our development requirements, codes, there's a gap. I can use that money for that gap. So we've got a lot of tools in that way. And then we also work with the state. The state of Texas itself has got a Texas Enterprise Fund. I was just looking, it's over a $190 million fund that they can contribute. So once we work with a local business or a business at the local level, then we facilitate moving up to the state level, and we've got numerous opportunities at the state level that they will support our incentives.
Go ahead, sir.
Mayor Thompson, more than 40% of our budget here goes for education. Yet we keep hearing that we're one of the lowest in terms of per pupil spending in the country. Where does your state rank in terms of per pupil spending? You have a cap on your education. Sounds like you may rank higher than us even with your cap.
You know, I would hate to answer that question because I do not know. I know that Texas has been ranked fairly low as per pupil. But most of the money, now I'm talking K through 12. And then we also, of course, have a state-supported system that comes through a different revenue source, and that has been a source of contention in our state, quite frankly. So I would hesitate to give you an answer because I don't know. So, but very similar issues, exactly. So.
Go ahead, sir.